So recently, my uncle asked me if the new Hyundai Genesis was a good car. So I took one for a test drive to see if it is or not. I'm going to start with what I liked about it. Firstly, the day I took it for a test drive, it was very cold because it is winter, and I noticed that the heater worked quite well. It got the car warm very quickly. Same with the heated seats. There was also quite a bit of room in the back, which is nice if you have passengers or whatnot. And the driver information cluster, like all the gauges and whatnot, was laid out quite well. That's it. That's all I liked about the car. So now we're going to start with what I didn't like. Firstly, it's really cheap feeling. This is a luxury car, so it shouldn't feel cheap, but it does. It feels more like a Camry or a Corolla, something like that. So that turned me off right away. What also turned me off right away is in the dealer when you go in to pick out your Genesis, you can't get the color combination you want. Now, if I were buying a car, I would want a black car with tan interior. I could not have that with the Genesis. If you want a black car, you have to get black interior, which doesn't really turn my crank. However, if you want the tan interior, you have to get a blue car or a red car, which, again, eh. So, this is a luxury car. I would kind of like the luxury of being able to pick the colors I would want. I also noticed the buttons in there feel very cheap, and there are a lot of them. The navigation screen is really small and hard to see, and the buttons on the steering wheel. The reason we put buttons on the steering wheel is so we're not looking down, fidgeting with the stereo system, so we can keep our eyes on the road. But this car has 14 buttons on the steering wheel that are all quite small and very hard to read because the writing is quite small as well. So instead of staring at your stereo, you're now staring at your steering wheel, figuring out which button you're trying to push. And having that many buttons on the steering wheel sort of defeats the purpose of having buttons on the steering wheel. The car, the ride overall, it's nothing special really. It's very, well, it's boring. It's very boring. That's really the focus. That's all I can think about, really. It's just a very boring car to drive. It's not very quick. It doesn't have a very good sound to it. The ride isn't anything sporty or at all. So it was very, very boring. And the thing about boring cars is it gives you a lot of time to think because you're not focused on the ride and the drive and you're not excited about driving it, so you tend to just, your mind wanders and you think about things. And the thing I thought about most while driving this new car was the exterior styling of it, because it's sort of like a mishmash of all of its competitors. It sort of looks like from the front like a Mercedes S-Class. From the back, it looks like a BMW. From the side, it looks like a Lexus. It's sort of like, the word that kept popping into mind is a Frankenstein car, which led me to believe that everyone who works at Hyundai must be grave robbers. They've just sort of gone out, instead of like designing a car from scratch, they've just sort of gone out to a bunch of junkyards and grabbed some bits and pieces off of some older cars, or dead cars as I like to say. So they've sort of stitched them all together and stuck them all on this car and made a Frankenstein car, which, it's not, it's like one of those people who dresses up like someone famous. They have to rest on other people, ride other people's coattails to sort of. And from a distance, it sort of does look like a Mercedes S. If it's very far away and you squint, it sort of looks like an S-Class, but it's not. It's a Hyundai. It's nowhere near what an S-Class is. So then I began to think again, Frankenstein car. So it's like a dead, who would want to be around or, in something dead? Well, necrophiliacs. So that led me to believe, well, this car is a necrophiliac's car. So when people see this car with you in this car driving by, they're not thinking, ooh, that's a nice car. They're thinking, ooh, there goes a necrophiliac, which personally isn't something that I would want to project to people. It's just me. I don't want people to think I'm a necrophiliac. But if you're a necrophiliac and you want people to know that you're a necrophiliac, perhaps this is the car for you. It's such a boring car to drive, and the fact that it's a necrophiliac's car, coupled with it not being very fun to drive, just doesn't make it a very good vehicle. Compared to its competition, I mean, its competition was BMW and Infiniti, Lexus. Those are all really top-notch cars that have a lot of style and a lot of clout when you buy one. This thing, no, it's just very boring. It's like driving to your own funeral. Yeah, that's the feeling you get when you're in it. It's not a very nice feeling. It's just boring. It's like, I've lived my life. I've done my purpose for humanity, and now I'm just sort of waiting to die. That's the feeling I got whilst driving this car. So, to answer my uncle's question, is the new Hyundai Genesis a good car? I would have to say no. It is not a good car. However, it is a good Hyundai. And you may think, well, wait a minute. Hyundai makes cars. That's what they do. Yes, well, not really. They make things that are big and they're metal and they have 4 round things attached to them and they will move from here to there. But that's really where the comparison ends. They have no passion, they have no fire, they have no soul. They don't inspire you to drive, which cars should do. Hyundai isn't a company that started out wanting to build a great car. They just wanted to make cheap cars and sell a lot of them so they could make a lot of money. And you can really tell that that's the focus of this car. It's not a very inspiring car to drive. So, that would be my answer. And what I would suggest for my uncle or anyone else looking at a Hyundai Genesis, I would suggest you go to the Pontiac dealer. You may think, Pontiac dealer? Ugh. No. The new Pontiac G8 GT is cheaper than the Hyundai Genesis, and it is a blast to drive. It's got a 6-liter, 362 horsepower V8 engine, which is just amazing. The rumble of this thing, and when you start it at first, you can feel it in your belly. You're like, yes, I want to drive this car. That's the feeling I got. Just putting the accelerator down in this car made my spine tingle. That's how awesome this car is. It will do 0 to 60 miles an hour in 5.3 seconds, which is faster than a Jag XK or a Porsche Boxster. So that's pretty impressive. So when you pull up in your big 4-door, and it is a big car, so your big 4-door Pontiac, and a guy pulls up beside you in his, coupe, his Jag coupe, you know that you'll blow the doors off him from 0 to 60 between the lights. And the sound of this car is so great. And when I drove it, I took it on a country road, and it's just spring now, so there's a lot of frost heaves and whatnot. And this car loves the corners, and it feels alive. It begs for you to drive it hard, and it loves it. And that's how you should feel when you're driving a car. You should feel electrified. You should feel that passion, that fire in your belly, that yes, I want to drive this car and I want to drive it hard. When you wake up in the morning, you would want to drive this car, unlike the Hyundai. You sort of wake up in the morning and think, oh, I guess I have to drive to work. But with the Pontiac, you'd be like, yes, I get to drive to work. And that's something I look for in a car. And the great thing about this the great thing about this Pontiac is it's big. It's got 4 doors, so you can bring your family along with you, and they can all experience what a proper driving should be. So that's my suggestion. The Hyundai Genesis is not a good car. And if you're looking for a really great driving experience in a car that's the same price, if not a little cheaper than the Hyundai, then get the new Pontiac G8 GT. That's what I'm going to tell my uncle, and that's what I suggest to anybody else who's looking in this segment for a car. Thanks for listening.